Hey, it's Arrow, and this is Podfest, episode number 34. 3 back-to-back conversations with real people of entertainment, politics, science, medicine, or cooks in their own kitchen. Podfest 34 features an extremely personal conversation with singer-songwriter, music legend Gordon Lightfoot. Our second conversation puts us right in the middle of an amazing creative journey with actress Grace Park from Hawaii Five-0 and Battlestar Galactica. And then we're headed into the thoughts and writing process of author Greg Brenneck, who gave us the book Impact in 2021. This is Podfest 34. We are unplugged and totally uncut with Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, I'm good. Have you on board?
Absolutely. This album here is a total gift to fans and newcomers because you're sharing with us a side of your journey that is just mind-blowing. It's like you're singing right to us. Well, you've invited us over to your house and you're saying, hey, I got some songs I want you to hear.
Yeah, I thought for a long while about orchestrating it and re-recording the whole thing. And changed my mind after I'd been thinking about it for about a year. I found that material almost 2 years ago, and while cleaning out my office, while cleaning out my office because we had to move, and I found when I first looked at it, I hardly recognized about 6 or 7 of the titles on there. And when I played it, it sounded real good, and I said, well, I'll take this all and rewrite it, and we'll take it up to the studio, and we'll do it all over again, and spend months and months and months doing that, but we all have extended families, and we're on tour, and, the stuff sounded real good to me, and the fans are going to love this stuff. I knew that. I knew that the fans are going to love it.
When you take it out on the road, will it be just you and the acoustic guitar when you go into the songs from solo? No,
I'm going to choose a couple of the tunes there, do one solo, and I'm going to orchestrate one of them, and I'll just do the two. Because we have such a solid show right now that we don't want to mess around with the show we already have, and we also don't want to run too long either with our show. So we're going to have to fit them in. Something else is going to have to go because we're working in a framework of time, when doing concerts.
I've always loved the way that you have the flow because you've been to Charlotte so many times, and I'll go there and you take us for a journey. It's a storyteller's journey in a way that you allow us to escape and to step into the process of creating music and displaying your art inside our imaginations.
Thank you, and it can be done just with 5 keys. Willie Nelson said, all you need is 3 keys, 2 keys, and the truth. Two keys and the truth. I have five keys, and so that if I spread myself out while writing this stuff, everything's going to sound different, and which is what I want. Everything to sound different.
Speaking of that truth, the song Just a Little Bit, you ask a lot of questions in here. Did you ever get tired? Did you ever get tired? Were you asking yourself that question when you were writing the song, or was there somebody sitting there where you're asking them, are you getting tired?
I'm asking them.
Yep.
I do. I'm asking the folks. I'm asking the folks out there. Thinking about the backyard slope and the garden and the dogs and the whole scene, It's a Sunday morning thing. Or is it a Saturday? Maybe it's a Saturday morning thing. It's a Saturday morning song.
Well, it definitely opens up the imagination in the way to where it's like even with the song Emotion, you really bring us in by using words that we speak on the everyday street. Is that difficult as a songwriter to keep it that real?
I like that one. I like that one a lot. It's about... that's about a guy trying to find his way into a woman's heart. And of course, it can be the other way around, the woman to the man, whichever. Whatever the heck it is. Yeah.
That explains why you're talking about, discovering new things to say and stuff like that, because you've got something new inside your heart when it comes to this song Emotion.
Yeah, I like writing songs about relationships. It's good. I can draw material for that, from my own experience.
The album we're talking about is a new album solo from Gordon Lightfoot. I think it's mind-blowing that you're sharing this experience with us. But what are you feeling on your side of the microphone and song?
I hope they don't think I'm getting lazy about this. But this stuff's too good. Like a lot of it could have been rewritten and even formats changed in the songs themselves, but it's just the sound of it was so good that I figured I better leave it alone. But it took many months to decide whether to do that. In the meantime, I tried doing some things by synthesizer, and I tried adding some rhythm tracks and stuff like that. And it sounded phony. It didn't sound good. So it finally came down to, why don't we just let it go and make it just with the guitar and just the vocal alone will give it that it's going to make it so different than anything I've ever done. And it sounds pretty good because it was done at a time when I was sort of at the peak of my delivery, because I had some health issues just very shortly after that that really put me out of business, like for 2.5 years. And this stuff was never really examined and really looked at, and there it was, and I found out while cleaning out my office. So it's just one of those things. I'm glad that it showed up. I was able to put it to good use.
Are there any other songs that are hiding that you'll one day come across?
Oh, there are always 3 or 4 sitting around. But if I'm going to put stuff out, 10 songs is the magic number. I had 5 that were for sure already when I put this album together, and then when I found 5 more on this missing piece to the puzzle, so to speak, I found 5 more. Actually, I found 6 more, but one of them I didn't use.
The song Better Off, this is one of those songs that I would love to see on a live stage, because I connected to it immediately, and then I wanted to listen to it over and over again.
That's my favorite one. I hope I can play the changes. I'm going to have to learn relearn the changes to that one. Of course, I've got a guitar player with me who will be able to play through that one. Maybe I'll just... I'll twiddle my thumbs. I'll twiddle my thumbs and I'll sing. Yeah, I can see it now. My guitar player will play the changes. I used to be able to play those chord changes, but I don't know if I could duplicate that now or not,
One thing listeners need to understand, if they've never seen you live in concert, I love the way that you set up your stage, where you're out there in front, and you it's like you're standing there saying, the songs, you can sing along, but we're going to go in this direction. And I just love the way that you command the show like that.
I can I'll grab a request if I can find a spot to drop it in.
Right.
But we don't get, and it usually comes like 2 or 3 songs later when you feel the opening, because but I do we take requests. We do every once in a while.
How tough was it to get Wreck of the Edmonds Fitzgerald on the radio? I mean that in those days, it always had to be 3 minutes and 15 seconds. But here came this song that just basically took all over radio.
Well, we when they asked if we could edit that song, I did it by editing the instrumentals on the single.
Oh.
So we never lost any of the verses. And we worked that out. There was a way you could do that. I could do it by taking 8 bars out of the middle of each of the guitar solos, and it's got a couple of double guitar solos on it too, so I was able to bring them down to singles. We got it down to 4:15. It was like a matter of getting it on the top 20 stations. We had to do that. I didn't mind doing it. I did it gladly.
Well, congratulations on solo. I can't wait to see you live in Charlotte again, because every time you come here, you always give us the best of the best, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to it. We love being out there.
You be brilliant today, okay?
Okay. Great. Bye.
First, some sounds from the movie Freaks, and then when we come back, we'll be unplugged and totally uncut with Grace Park.
By definition, any freaks who are running loose are illegal.
Abnormals are dangerous, and we can't let them live free.
Chloe! Hey! Someone could have seen you.
Sorry, Dad.
You have to stay hidden. They look just like us, right?
Where are you going?
I don't want to hide anymore.
You gotta be strong like your mom was.
You knew my mom?
talking about?
What did you see there? They took her away.
She's not dead yet.
What?
Hiding is out.
We are never getting out of here alive.
I'm coming out with a girl.
Look what you've done.
I saved us!
Where are you, Mommy?
Good morning, Grace. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. How are you?
Fantastic. Man, you are in so many places at the same time. How are you holding up on that when you have so many different acting things going on at the same time?
Well, that's a good thing about all these streaming platforms and ways to get it. It's like you're actually only in one place, even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes. Yesterday, I was up at 1:30 to catch a shuttle to get to, I was in Arizona, to get on a flight, and it's like, you know, there's only one of you, but sometimes it feels like you're navigating so many things that it'd be so much easier if there was more than one of you. You know, when I was young, I kind of wanted like a clone. And then ended up being able to work on a show where I got to be a clone. Figure that.
You're in a brand new movie called Freaks. This movie gets inside your head and heart. What was it like to be on the set of this? Because, I mean, this one's really going to play with your head.
Yeah, the storyline is so fantastic because the premise is you're having the world unfold for you, but from the perspective of a 7-year-old child. And this girl has been actually kept inside her home, this like house that's falling apart by her father, who's paranoid, and we're trying to figure out, is he lying? Is he telling the truth? The world out there does seem pretty threatening, and then she does finally get lured out by Mr. Snowcone.
Now, you're playing Agent Ray. I mean, for you to put this together, and you're the one that gets to go in there and try to figure out what this story's all about. What was it like for you to really kind of get into the scripts on this film?
I was definitely intimidated because, you know, of the character that they had wanted me to build on from, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was, I don't want to say it incorrectly, so I won't say, but the film or the clip they had me watch was from, I think he won an Academy Award. So it's like, you can't really match that, no matter how hard you try. But, you know, going on a set, I got to work with Bruce Dern. I was told to be absolutely ready for him, and of course you want to do your best. So it was really great working also with Adam and Zach. They wrote a fantastic script that really hooked me in by probably the third or fourth page. It's like, I'll tell you that I was so tired and busy that I was exhausted that I already planned. I already said no in my head. And I started writing the email to my agent saying that I was saying no, and then I realized I hadn't read any of it. So I was like, I have to at least read some of it so I can tell them that I had started. And I was like, it's not for me. And by page 4, I was like, oh, no. So good. And I was like, no! But it was such a fantastic ride. And I'm just really excited for other people to be able to experience it in the movie form. You know, I just got to read it in black and white on a page originally, and then you do your best to bring it to life.
You talked about Adam. This movie was kind of pulled from his own personal fears with his own daughter, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, because he was a new father, you know, years ago, and I think he had to look at the world in a different place. It's quite different when you just are yourself. Like, what do you have to slog through the world? What do you think you have to protect yourself from? You know, security or finances or, I don't know, a dark alley, whatever. And then when you have a child, suddenly the world feels very different. You're trying to protect in a different level, and you care about different things that didn't matter to you when you were, you know, just you.
When they were doing the filming, they did it from her size, where they were what she saw in the world. Did you, that creative self, go down in where those cameras were and look up as well, just to kind of get a view of what those directors were wanting?
You know what? I don't know if I really recognized at the time that that's what they were doing. And so I think maybe I would have done that a little bit more. And it could have been that they had told us that. But, I mean, you're still shooting the scene like a regular scene, but it's how they'll, you know, like the noises or is she having visions? And, what is it like? Like, what does the light look like when she's trying to look out, the boarded windows or through the mailbox slot that's been covered with duct tape, things like that. So there's this little kind of element of like the unknown because it's not so clear, and there's a little bit of wonder or mystery involved. And so I think a lot of that is done by, their direction and maybe some special effects.
They really make Bruce Dern stand out in this motion picture in the way that through her eyes, all of a sudden here's this vision, and as the viewer you go, oh, and you get that feeling where it kind of just sucks the air right out of your lungs.
I know. I have goosebumps. I know. He plays Mr. Snowcone, which has got to be like the best character title for sure. But yeah, he plays as somebody that she doesn't even know who he is, but she's so drawn towards him. So you're drawn towards him as well, but at the same time, you're not really sure if you should trust him either.
Did you learn anything from this movie? Because it really does. It's so up close and personal, and we can all relate with somebody in this film.
Oh, that's so weird. I would never really think that because, you have Mr. Snowcone, you have a paranoid dad. I'm like, what are you telling me about your life there, Arrow?
In the way that we all have our own fears, and we all, and it's one of those things because, I don't want to call myself an introvert, but there are times I just don't want to go outside, and I'll create my own stories as to why I'm not going out there. It's just an evil world.
I love that. I love that you just said that. And I do think that it really does depend. That's so great that you just said that because it depends on what we focus on, what is told to us. Is it like the perspective of what you're seeing online or in the news? I remember when I visited the States during, I think it was anthrax and 9/11 had happened. And it was like no matter what was on the television, it was like I felt like it was closing in on me. And it was like, wow, it's like they'd really created this fear and like there's the whole world, yet you felt like you were like the air was being sucked out of the room and it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And like in a way, like that's what's going on for this little girl. That's everything that she's being fed. So it's actually very telling, like what are we informing ourselves with? At a point in my life, I lived in Hong Kong, and I remember the news was very different over there. You listen to the BBC, and it depends on what is being fed to you. And certainly, wherever you're at, you're going to hear more local news. Right, but you do want to be a savvy consumer and figure out like how much is being told to you so you stay listening, and how much is being told to you because it's the truth. And so we all want to be critical thinkers like that, right?
You just shot me back to a huge part of what we no longer talk about, and that is 9/11 with the anthrax scare. In radio, they had to close off a certain section of the building because the part where the mailroom, because they didn't want anthrax at the radio station. And that's a part of that journey that we went through in 2001 that nobody's talking about, and yet you just brought it up. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a pretty scary time, and I think it was like, when it's sort of like, when you're young, generally, like you sort of think your parents can do anything because they're so much bigger and smarter than you, and they can like move cars and feed people, and all this stuff happens that you don't know how to do. Like you're learning to tie your laces, right? Something like that, or like walk from school to home, and then there's a point where your parents, like when you get older, like you realize they can't do everything, and that kind of becomes a scary point. And like when you sort of grow up in a place where there wasn't like a war on like for your generation, and then suddenly something like that happens, it's like you realize the vulnerability, and it can feel very jarring and really disorienting. And you realize like security is really kind of a mindset and what you make of it. And there's a lot, and I think a lot of us probably on a daily level, maybe even like a minute-to-minute level, it's going, on the undercurrent, but we don't really necessarily recognize it because everyone wants to feel safe.
The movie we're talking about is Freaks, which opens up on September 13th. Was there a scene anytime during this movie when it was being shot that you're going, man, I got to keep it together. This is even scary for me? I don't necessarily think so, but I certainly remember when I was reading the script, it was quite a ride, and I was so hooked within the first few pages, and I couldn't get through that script fast enough. It was so good, and I'm just really excited for people to be able to go through the movie themselves. And I think it's probably scarier watching it than shooting it.
I think.
Yeah, because it's just intense, because it definitely gets inside your head and heart. So now people are going to want to know, what is it like to be Boomer and Athena on Battlestar Galactica? To be both characters, what do you go through as an actress on this?
That's an interesting question. I started with one character in the beginning, and I think when we introduced the second, I wasn't really quite sure where they were going. And you don't really know what that character is, because it was actually just pretending to be, the second character, Athena, was just pretending to be Boomer. And so I was just pretending the whole time, but yet the storylines kept diverging, and then you realize his inner life starts to grow and is quite different. And then it was strange, because I think maybe a couple years ago, after I'd finished, I'd started going through my different roles that I had done in my life. And I think if I was sitting or standing, I actually just remembered the character, and then I let my body move to what it felt like to hold that character. And Athena was quite different than Boomer. They had different outlooks, different internal lives. Boomer was far more in a struggle, had a lot more inner conflict. But I think Athena's struggle was more external, what she was fighting. And so it was interesting, because one had so much more hope. Athena had so much more hope, and Boomer was a lot darker.
Yeah.
Because I don't think she really had that as much. It was more futile, and she's more. There's more probably despair on a lower level. So it was interesting to go between them. And the one time that I had to do both the characters, I was a bit freaking out, because I was like, how am I going to pull this off? It was a lot easier than when James Callis had to do it for his character, Baltar. Wow, that was amazing. But afterwards, I had seen a physical therapist, like kind of massage therapist, but not exactly. And she'd said, and I'd finished shooting the scene with the two different characters, and she said, whoa, what happened to you? I was like, why? She goes, I've never seen the two sides of your back so different.
Oh.
I was somehow trying to embody and morph these two things, and I was separating and yet trying to put them together. And she just happened to say that. She didn't know anything about what I was doing. And I was like, I definitely took note, and I'm like, that's crazy.
See, I've always believed that the actors, they take a piece of the characters with them from that day forward, and it changes them, and they've got to figure out how they're going to become themselves again.
Well, that's a good point, because sometimes if the storylines are really heavy, and depending on the way you act, there's different methods, and so some of them, I think some people can do theirs very lightly, hold it quite lightly, but I think the school that I came from, not so much. And there was a point I was so tapped out. It was actually during Battlestar that I was like, nope, not doing this anymore. And part of me was like, no, la 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 la. I showed up to work. It was a very heavy day. It was a very dark day that we had to shoot, and I was like, I'm not doing it. And I was skipping around, like the prison, the set. And the other actor, we started shooting, roll, action, and then he had the phone to his ear, and then I went over to the phone in a good mood, and I just looked at it, locked eyes with him, and he was in this super heavy, dark, dense place, and I immediately dropped in. And in a way, it was actually good, because she wasn't ready for what she was going to hear. But, sometimes you don't have to try so hard. And in real life, sometimes you get hit with news, and all of you knows what to do. You're not like, wait, I wasn't ready for that news. You're going to have to come back and tell me in a year. It's like we're actually very exquisitely sensitive beings. We try to make ourselves numb sometimes, but not really the best way, and it makes life a little bit better.
To be in that place of numbness and stuff like that, mindfully, do you write each day? Are you a daily writer, a journalist?
It would probably be a lot healthier if I did. There's something called the morning pages. I'm not sure if you heard of it.
Yeah, Julia Cameron.
Yeah, 3 pages a day. Do you do that?
Yes, I've been doing it for 25 years.
Wow, can I give you a medal or something? That's amazing. Anyone that can do something every day besides eating and going to the bathroom and sleep, I feel like it's really, it's very beautiful that you have that vision, that dedication. You're able to be so consistent. I would love to be able to do that. I was just told this by someone at a retreat. She said, "Do you do destructive work because you're in a creative field?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Oh, if you're in a creative field, you have to do destructive work every day." Yep. I was like, "Okay, tell me more." And she said, essentially, if you are so creative, you need to do something to also balance it out and break things down. So whether it be mindfully washing the dishes, shredding paper instead of putting it through a shredder, actually just tearing it with your hands and then putting it in the recycling, whatever it is, weeding, something where you're kind of breaking the things back down, kind of maybe to the smaller pieces, because it's sort of, I guess, you can see it as a balance or a flow. That was really interesting.
I do a defrag journal every day. I do my normal writing at 4:30 in the morning every day, but at 4 o'clock in the afternoon I do a defrag, which is exactly where you've got to break it down. Otherwise, then you walk into your night without, because I'm in radio, I'm an actor too.
Wow. How do you defrag it? What do? Do you just write down?
You just start asking yourself questions. You just go in there and you go, okay, so at 11 o'clock this morning, this is what you were doing. This is where your mindset was. How do you want to work on this? Let's break it down. Why did your mind go there?
Wow. Oh, my gosh. Can you send me your journal? I'm kidding. That's amazing. Wow. Is that? That's... I'm really very intrigued. Thanks for sharing that.
Now, what you need to do is you need to reach out to Julia Cameron. She is one of the nicest people that you will ever meet, and it's just one of the most mind-blowing conversations you'll have with the person that started the morning pages.
Why, did you have an interview with her? Do you know her?
I did, and it's, oh my God, and she is just so peaceful, and I love her latest one because she does the book where she goes, the moment you get your first AARP card in the mail, and she goes, that's when you know life is changing.
What's that?
That's for old people, where they get the discounts at the movie theaters and things like that.
That's hilarious. I'm like, what am I missing out on? Tell me.
and because what happens is a lot of people close down their creativity once they hit a certain age. They think, oh, I'm too old. When in fact, the older you get, the more creative you get, and you've got to learn how to use that energy.
Ooh, wow, this is so exciting. I was just talking to another friend who said, like, she was talking to, I don't want to say his name wrong, so I won't say it, but is in the health field and said, like, oh, absolutely, scientifically, we can all live to 120. Yep. So her goal was to live to, 100. Yeah, so her goal is, like, I'm living till 130. So I'm planning from now. I was like, holy, that changes a lot of things.
Well, I'm glad you gave yourself permission to be creative, because through you, a lot of us get to, kind of release from the real world, from Battlestar Galactica to Hawaii Five-0, and now this movie Freaks and stuff like that. It's just, you give us that space and place where we can just be ourselves.
Well, I think that, everyone, like you said, like everyone is creative, and you're doing that on a daily level. If we could all do that, because we are all inherently creative, like how much we'd probably feel a lot better. I think I should actually be doing that, because to me, it's a job. I punch in, I punch out, and, some people think it's like a lifestyle, and it's like, to me, it's quite just a job, and I guess it is creative, but, it's like you're doing someone else's work, and I kind of wonder, like, I know at some point I got to just do my own, even if it's just really small, even if it's like a little flip book or, I don't know, something tiny. You just got to, from the beginning to the end, a small creation within your own hands.
That's like when I cut commercials, I always think about that listener. We're going to change that listener's life because they're going to buy that car, because they're going to go buy a house, because they're going to buy this. We're in the business of changing people's lives.
Yeah, and you want them to know that, to be mindful about that. So what are they choosing, and to go towards their vision, their goal. You don't just want them mindlessly choosing. You want them to kind of be like, I'm doing this because this is what I want. This is where I'm going towards. Sounds awesome.
I love it. You got to come back to the show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you, Grace.
Oh, wow. What a pleasure. And I'm even more interested in Julia Cameron. I want to talk to her.
She's got a total of 14 different books. It's a journey. Just do it one page at a time, and it'll really bring a lot of peace to your soul, because creative people, oh my God, those voices in our head and heart, they get too loud sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing is, like you said, but everyone's creative. So, like, if everyone did a little bit of that, like, how much better it would be. And the thing is, I've heard about this. I actually had a group of actors. We got together for, like, once a week for 2 years, and we based it on The Way of the Heart by Julia Cameron. And I think I didn't even get to chapter 2, to be honest. I have, like, 2 of the books. I could, like, take 10 steps and grab it off the shelf right now, but... yeah, they're pretty new. They're pretty shiny looking.
You be brilliant today, okay?
Wow, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing, Errol. I appreciate that.
We are unplugged and totally uncut with Greg Brenneck.
Doing great in non-snowy California right now.
Oh, man. Yeah. I'll tell you the thing. One of the biggest shockers of California to me was we flew out to San Francisco. We got a convertible. Oh, we're going to do the Pacific Coast Highway with the top down. No, we froze our butts off, man. That's a different world out there. Oh, my God.
It's cold, yeah.
But, being out there in California, it kind of reminds me of, I grew up in Montana. Meteors were a major part of our lives because that big sky country is wide open. It's a canvas.
Yeah, there's no light pollution up there. You can see everything. It's great.
What got you into meteors? I mean, was it the fact that things were falling, or was it just the great mystery of what are these things?
I got into it just because I liked being outside, and I kind of was trained as a geologist in undergraduate, and then got into graduate school, and ended up just taking a class in meteorites, and just really found them fascinating objects, and the fact that we could learn so much from them about the early solar system. That's where I got hooked, I guess.
The name of the book is Impact. I'll tell you, there's a lot of science classes that better be putting this inside their rooms, because you unveil some things I had no clue even take place.
Yeah, thanks. There's a lot of stuff we get from meteorites that I think a lot of people are very surprised at. And I certainly was one of those people when I was taking this class in graduate school for the first time. And that's, like I said, why I got hooked, is because there's just so much that are contained in these things. There's such diverse, interesting objects.
Well, 100 tons of extraterrestrial material is added to the Earth every day. How?
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, I like to think of it as 75 Volkswagen Golfs are coming our way every day. But luckily they're just small bits, basically in dust form. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of dust that's kind of fallen from outer space, and some of these rocks are softball size, or even larger sometimes. But most of the material we get is in the form of dust. But it's a lot of material.
Yeah, when I read that about the 100 tons of stuff coming down, the first picture I had was Wally out there and just putting around, just trying to clean up the planet. Because if it looks, are we really a dust collector?
You know what? That's what gravity does. Exactly. We're a dust collector. The sun's a dust collector. Everybody's a dust collector.
What's this that meteorites actually stop wars? What happened here?
So actually, it was I believe it was a situation in ancient Mesopotamia, or I'm sorry, not Mesopotamia, Anatolia. Said the wrong thing. There was a battle going on. We had a cosmic event, and both parties just kind of were like, they looked up and were like, you know what, why are we warring? What are we doing? And they just kind of stopped. And that was, kind of a really interesting period of history, which kind of both sides agreed to just kind of lay down their arms because they had something really interesting happening in the cosmos.
Well, meteorites are part of the reason why I enjoy summer here in the Carolinas, because we get those showers that last it can be 3-4 nights in a row.
Right. Yeah. They're really spectacular when you get to see them. But
they've got to be on the horizon. You talked about eye pollution before. That's the one thing that big cities, they kind of miss out on the opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, light pollution is certainly a big problem for people who enjoy looking at the stars. You need to be in places like rural Montana is a great one, of course.
Oh, my God. That if it wasn't a meteor shower, then it was sonic booms that would just scare the hell out of you. So now, in essence, are meteorites aliens?
I guess how you define alien. They're certainly not of this world. So, this world being Earth. So, yeah, I guess in that case, they are aliens.
Well, because they come down here and they change what we're doing. I mean, it's part of our evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have certainly, changed basically everything about Earth. It would nowhere near be the same place. It'd probably just be a dead hunk of rock if it wasn't for meteorites.
Yeah, I keep waiting for Pfizer to announce that. Well, we know we had COVID taken care of, but boy, we really have it now because it's coming from a meteorite. We're going to take some of the minerals from this thing, and it really works.
That would make people notice meteorites for sure. This book would have nothing on that.
Now, one of the things that, the skies and stuff like that have always affected different religions and things like that. I didn't know that meteorites really actually, touched the religious world and it changed some people.
Absolutely. Probably one of the most important turning points in Christianity, for example, is that St. Paul, originally was, the story goes, he was certainly against followers of Jesus, and then he was on this trip, and this large meteorite airburst happened, knocked him off his horse. He went blind for a few days, and then he basically converted and became this evangelist for Christianity, and really kind of turned Christianity into what it is today, as opposed to just a small following. And that actually, is very consistent with a meteorite airburst. And we see a lot of those types of medical things happen in there's an airburst in 2013 in Russia in which people went blind for a few days.
Wow.
And something fell off their eyes, like in the story in the Bible. So, this is kind of, based on science, is this can actually happen. And so that's one of the major inflection points in Christianity. And there's quite a few more as well. But Yeah, it's really remarkable how much these things have affected different religions.
Are they parts from planets or from comets? Where are they coming from? This dirt, this dust.
It's kind of a mix. So some of them are failed planets that didn't really get big enough. So they're kind of small planets that formed, and we call them planetesimals. Some of them actually are pieces of planets. So we have chunks of Mars. We've got over 300 pieces of Mars in the form of meteorites, which is nice because we don't have pieces of Mars otherwise. And some of them are possibly pieces of comets, like you mentioned. There's definitely some speculation on some of the different types of meteorites that have a lot in common with some comets that we've been able to study.
Speaking of Mars, do you think Perseverance is getting beat up by some meteorites over there in Mars? Because they've got gravity, do they not?
They definitely have gravity, yeah. So probably, chances of Perseverance getting hit is the same as a Mini Cooper getting hit here on Earth. So it's probably not in too much danger statistically. But it's actually some of the rovers found a few different meteorites on Mars as they were driving around. They found a couple iron meteorites, which is kind of really, really cool to think about, finding a meteorite on a different planet.
So now the average person, if they were to go out, I wish I could take everybody on the little tours that we used to do on the ranch in Ranchester, Wyoming when I was a kid. We used to spend hours out there looking at all the rocks that were in the open fields, thinking that this has got to be a meteor, man, because it doesn't look like a normal rock.
Yes, it is very common to just kind of hunt around and look for weird looking rocks, and sometimes you get lucky, and sometimes it actually is a meteorite. But it's pretty difficult to tell the difference. Sometimes the easiest way is to actually see one fall, of course, and then
right.
it's a meteorite.
Would it not be hot if you were to rush over to it?
Actually, they're usually quite cold. So they kind of have this fireball streak as they come through the atmosphere, and then they reach terminal velocity, and then they just kind of drop after that. But these things have been sitting in sub-zero temperatures of space for billions of years. So the interior is actually quite frosty when they fall. So the outer millimeter or so is the only thing that gets hot.
Man, it's like dry ice from outer space.
Yes, even colder, actually.
Oh my God! Now, what
crazy.
What have you personally learned from all of this? Because the attraction is that you keep growing with it. But you've got to be learning new things.
Oh, absolutely. We continue to learn an immense amount. The study of meteorites didn't really get started until we were starting to gear up for the moon landing. So this is a very, very young science when it comes to actually what we've learned from meteorites. My group is really focused on kind of time scales of how planets form and how the sun formed and how long this actually takes. So that's one thing we look at as a group. And I find that to be really fascinating about how fast it takes to form the sun or different planets.
Just the fact that if I found one, how old is it? And how could you ever tell? You'd have to meet up with a scientist like yourself.
Yeah, so almost all meteorites are probably on the order of 4.5 billion years old. I know, with a B. That's really, really old. So this is the very start of the solar system. There are some meteorites that come from like the surface of Mars or different asteroids that are a little bit younger than that. Mars is a geologically active planet, so there are volcanoes so you can get stuff that is much younger, in the millions of years old from Mars. But most of them are quite old, which is great for us, for people that like to study the very early solar system, because they are these perfect time capsules.
Now, how did King Tut get his hands on some so he could have that knife?
Well, talking about light pollution, the ancient Egyptians definitely didn't have any light pollution. So that was one benefit. And probably what happened is that, they've got large expanses of desert, and probably not only do they see a lot of meteorites fall, but they found probably a significant amount of iron meteorites. And ancient Egypt, they were not able to make iron. Humanity wasn't basically able to make iron in its kind of elemental form to make weapons and metal until kind of 900, 1200 BCE. So in the time of ancient Egypt, if you found a chunk of metal that was this big shiny rock that was hard and had all these properties that you couldn't even make with your current technology, that's a pretty valuable thing. And that's why King Tut probably had a knife that was made of meteoritic iron because it was such a valuable, just metal that just couldn't be produced in ancient Egypt.
Oh, can you imagine being in a battle with that knife and you're stuck with a stick, and you take
you're battling some guy with a giant knife or a sword that's made of some metal that you don't even know exists. Yeah, it's you're fighting a lightsaber or something right now.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi here, man.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's actually some stories of historical figures that say wielded a weapon from the heavens, and so it's possible these people were actually using these types of tools in battle and became famous because they had properties that people couldn't create at the time.
So if we're being pummeled with 100 tons of extraterrestrial material, what's happening up there with the International Space Station? Are they getting hit? Because I sure don't hear stories about that.
Most of the stuff we get is in dust form. Oh. So I'm sure they're getting hit by small pieces of dust, and that's not too big of an issue. So most of the material that actually comes is in really small dust form. We're not getting pelted by, large basketball-sized rocks that often. They do happen, but they're pretty rare. So that's kind of where we are with that. It's not too big of a danger simply because space is so gigantic and there's not that many large items that are hitting us.
So when we see that falling star, as we always call it, but the meteorite that's falling, is it large? And then because how does it make such a large streak across the sky?
It's going really fast. Most of the shooting stars that we see are actually small pieces, about the size of a piece of sand.
Right.
So most of those are actually really, really small pieces. It's rare to have something, tennis ball, softball sized, that will certainly cause a streak like that. But most of them we see are actually, kind of sand particles that come into the atmosphere.
Because that's all I read anymore on my Google News and all that kind of stuff. A meteorite was 29,000 miles from Earth. And they make them look like they're bigger than a refrigerator.
Yeah, well, it's fun to be sensational about the size of these meteorites. Most of them are pretty small. It's not going to take too big a one to cause a major issue, on Earth, but chances are fairly low.
Yeah. So how does the ocean play out in all this?
From a contemporary standpoint, there's large swaths of the ocean that actually receive a lot of, kind of ingredients and nutrients from micrometeorites, like we were talking about, these little sand particles. That don't have, things like phosphorus or iron sources. So there's, plankton in the middle of, let's say, the Atlantic, get a lot of their, phosphorus and iron from above. They get micrometeorites, and that's largely how they are able to survive.
So do you think that some of that washes up on the shore and we just think it's part of the sand?
Most of it is probably dissolved in the ocean or used by life. Basically, once a meteorite is going to land in a big puddle of salt water, it's not going to last too long. So it's unfortunately ruined for science at that point.
I kept waiting for you to tell me that, the meteorites, more of them land at the Bermuda Triangle than any other place on the planet.
It's like a funnel, yes.
Well, speaking of things like Bermuda Triangle, the Aztecs really had kind of a different kind of a vibe about this.
They did have a different vibe. They actually believed that meteorites were basically poop from the gods. Yep. which is a really fun way to think about what I study. I love that.
I can't wait to share that with my grandkids. I swear to God, they're going to love it. Look, man, the gods are farting on you right now, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, are you going to turn this into a podcast? Because this is the kind of stuff that I would listen to driving to and from work.
I don't have the radio skills that you do, so I won't be able to make that leap. I don't think. I think I'll stick to the safe writing, and that I can go back and correct things if I make a typo or something. It is really interesting stuff, though. I hope somebody does that.
Well, you do make it interesting, and you make it like a coffee table book. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's one of those where you don't want to set it in your where you put normal books. You want it to be there to where when boring TV is on, I can pick it up and I can pick something up from my imagination.
Well, thanks for saying that. I really tried to make it interesting to as many people as possible. There's a lot of science books out there that are not really accessible to non-experts, and I definitely wanted as many people as possible to be able to read this and understand why we do what we do and what meteorites have given us as a planet and culture.
So why did it take so long to study meteorites? Why did it have to take the trip to the moon? Because we've always been interested in outer space.
We have. Why it took so long is a great question. Part of it was technology. Part of it was that the technology that was invented to go to the moon and to study samples from the moon parlays perfectly into studying meteorites. And that technology just simply didn't exist before. We could look at them and we could say, okay, through a microscope, these are different objects, but getting at how different they are and what that actually means wasn't really possible until we had the machinery and technology that the space race basically created. So that's definitely part of it, is the technology aspect.
The Chinese landed on an asteroid last year, and they brought back some physical evidence of that. I mean, do you find that fascinating, and do you think we're going to do that more often?
Yeah. So I think the JAXA, or the Japanese Space Agency, brought back pieces of Ryugu, which was what's called a carbonaceous chondrite type meteorite, and actually NASA's doing the same with OSIRIS-REx mission. And it's really fascinating. I like to think of it as bringing the meteorites home, going to the meteorites and bringing them home. But yeah, these represents really, really pristine samples that have, obviously no adulteration from Earth. And it's really a cool thing to be able to be part of. I look forward to being able to get some of those samples for sure.
Well, speaking of samples, how would you like to get some of those samples that Perseverance is picking up right now? I mean, I realize we're years away from even just looking at it, but wouldn't you like to be first in line?
Oh man, I hope I'm still in science when those come back. I really hope so, because it's super interesting. And while my part of study is not really looking at life in clays and things like that, man, it's interesting stuff. I really love the kind of risks and cool things that we're doing up in space. It's really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's almost become cool again. I love the fact that people are interested in what's going on up there.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when we start, sending cool things to cool places. Exploration is something that humans have always loved to do, and restarting that program is really, really important, and it inspires, kind of the youth to get involved, and then you got even brighter minds coming up behind us. It's great.
Wow, dude, you got to come back to this show anytime in the future. The door is always going to be open for you.
Hey, thanks a lot. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
Well, you be brilliant today, okay?
All right. The same to you, man.